neglect or abuse report as mandated by the Texas Child Protective Service Agency. Finally, the sixth form is a reference with the names of the forms, who uses which form, and the order in which student self-injury and student reports should be made. This flowchart summarizes the steps outlined in the protocol. When self-injury is discovered, the student or students are taken to the nurse so the injuries can be examined. The adult who first learns about the self-injury completes the report form and returns it to the counselor. If there are any known bystanders, they are referred to the counselor to determine their needs. After the nurse has cared for the injuries, he or she takes students individually to the counselor. The counselor interviews each student to determine their needs for support. If the counselor suspects suicidal intent, the SRA is completed and appropriate action is taken. The counselor then contacts the administrator, parent, or guardian, and PSS staff. Within 5 days, an action plan meeting is held so that interventions are in place to prevent future self-injury. The next slide will show a video of the team applying the self-injury protocol to a case presentation.
Okay, so thanks for meeting me first and foremost, because I had this situation last week at the middle school that I wanted to share with you, because they told me that you might have something dealing with self-injury, which is what this case has to pretty much handle. So the student's name's Erica. She's 13 years old in middle school, and she's had a lot of things happen in her life that have really caused her to have a hard time with her emotions. And what we ended up finding out was that she was self-injuring at home. But last week at school, a lot of stuff just was not going well, so she decided to take the sharpener blade and start self-injuring herself at school. The other issue is that there was another student with her. And so they're both kind of going through a really hard time. The thing is that the staff has asked me to help them, because even though they handle the situation, they want to know if something can be done to help them, maybe have a plan that will help them in the situation.
It's great that they asked you. I'm
glad.
glad.
So,
And thanks for coming to us.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Well, let's just start with the different roles that each person has to play. Who found the students who were cutting?
This happened at a gym.
Okay.
So the coach found them.
Okay.
Pretty much, she tends to go through the dressing room, and she came upon these two students who were self-injuring themselves. So she was shocked, and she just took both of them to the counselor's office. She took the blade from them and took them straight to the counselor's office.
Okay, well, one of the things that we want to keep in mind when we're talking to our teachers, our coaching staff, we want to let them know that they need to talk to the kids privately, and they also need to talk to the kids in a calm manner and not be judgmental of the kids. I know you mentioned that she was shocked. You want to make sure that the coach doesn't be too judgmental with the kids, because that can cause the kids to feel embarrassed or ashamed of what it is that they're doing. And another thing that we want to do with, as the teacher, the coach, we want to have the coach, that's great that the coach brought them to the counselor, but we want to have the coach bring the students to the nurse. And so we want to make sure the coach does that first. And then there's a report form that we have for teachers to fill out. And the report form addresses like kids who cut individually, and in this case it's a group of kids. So it's 2 kids. So we want to make sure the coach fills out that form and brings it to the nurse, and the counselor, and notify the counselor as well.
And thank you for bringing up the nurse. I think it's a really critical piece of our protocol because it is important that the students are brought to the nurse first, because the nurse is the one that can assess the wounds, clean everything up, and see if there's any kind of concern with the wounds themselves. And it's definitely important they see the nurse, and from this point go one at a time, so that you're not bringing up things about the group, things aren't being spread from around the group of friends. So you want to keep things at this point one at a time. So the nurse can look at the injuries, talk to them. If they're sharing objects in this case, it's really important that she talks about the health risks of sharing the blades. And then from there, once everything's been settled medically, then they can go to the counselor for some more help.
Now, Rosa, how did the counselor react to your case?
In this particular situation, the counselor basically asked the girls if they were suicidal. And both of the girls said they weren't. This is just something that Erica's been doing at home to feel better, and Stacy also felt that relief. So they both let the counselor know that it's not that they want to kill themselves, but the counselor felt that they weren't necessarily being honest with her.
Well, and I understand the counselor. I mean, there is a small percentage of cases where people who self-injure do it with the intent of wanting to kill themselves or bleed out or commit suicide. So I understand that piece. However, in this situation, the students told the counselor that that they self-injured not for suicide, but because they felt some kind of relief. So if a counselor, tells the family or of the students to take them to like a mental health hospital, I'm not sure if in this case the counselor recommended that.
She did.
Probably they might be turned away. I mean, in the evaluation, because if the student says the same thing, oh, I didn't do this because I wanted to kill myself, I did it for relief. I mean, they're probably going to be sent home, and that's probably about, 2-3 hours of wasted time. So this is why the team, we developed a questionnaire for the counselors, and it'll help them it'll guide them so that they can screen as to whether or not the student self-injured for suicide or if this is not suicidal. And in the questionnaire also has questions on group self-injury and questions on bystanders or those students who witnessed the self-injury. We have questions for those students as well in case they need some help. Also for counselors, and they have a huge role in this. They play a very big role in this. That's why we provided them with sort of like a checklist or a guideline on how they should conduct their meeting. We think that it's very important for the counselor to have a meeting with the child and the parents, as well as the administrator, because the self-injury was in the school, so the administrator needs to know about this. Psychological and social services, and youth and family center, if they have a therapist there. These important people need to be at the meeting to address the action plan. So the counselor is going to have a guideline on what they should cover in the action plan. They also is a letter for the parents documenting what the student did at school, how the student self-injured, and in the document it also has contact information for the parents in case they want more resources outside of the school.
And it's important for this meeting to be conducted within 5 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
The sooner the better.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are times, Rosa, where the counselors are out of the building. They just are. And they can call either their buddy or their supervisor. And, of course, knowing that the first person to go to is the nurse, and like we were talking about. So the nurse is also able to assess and get the administrator involved. And our services, psych services, are always available. And we can also facilitate any kind of referrals or anything when the parents come in. But the other important piece that I want to make sure that we have a protocol also that requires that we do like a safety plan with the student, and that safety plan can be done pretty soon. It doesn't have to be done that first day, but it's a good way to kind of ask the students some questions so that in class and at school we kind of have a good plan for them. And this plan is going to be real helpful for the meeting that we have within 5 days. And so it's kind of like a preparation for that meeting. So that's going to be really helpful.
I think we really need to talk about the role of the administrator too, because he's already been mentioned as being involved in the meetings and everything. And of course the administrator is going to kind of oversee the follow-up of everything. But one thing that comes up a lot in these cases is disciplinary action, because the student might bring, this case it was a small blade from a sharpener, but sometimes you get larger weapons, and it's always a question of what to do about those things, because we really want these students to get the help they need as soon as possible. And a suspension might make things worse because we're just delaying services. So it's really important that the administrator takes the time to talk to counselors, to psychological and social services, to the disciplinary office if they need to, and figure out how to handle these disciplinary situations in a way that's really going to best help the child move forward.
Okay. There's so many significant players in the school, and one of them that is present in a lot of our schools is the police officer. And you mentioned that this event, this self-injury occurred during school hours, but if it's after school hours, then you have to consider that the police officer needs to be aware of what to do in the event that happens. So if the situation that he encounters, the individual really is showing some very severe symptoms or injuries, whether the child needs to be hospitalized, parents need to be contacted, or does this child have to have a warrant to actually hospitalize the individual? That's really critical. So parents have to be given information. So our police officers need to know about resources such as the Adapt Mobile Crisis Unit, the Timberlawn information, and then passing on that information the very next day to administrators and counselors so we can follow up and make sure that we are going to follow up with the safety plan and all the things that are available to make sure that our students continue to be in school.
Does that sound helpful? Do you think that's...
I think it does.
Okay.
Because it addresses the people who are in the schools, and once again the focus is on the students. So I think this is what they're looking for, is for them to have a sense, a guide of what to do when this happens. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please keep in mind that even though we can implement these suggestions, it does not mean that the student will stop self-injuring completely or immediately. This is a process that takes much care and teamwork. Self-injurious behaviors may minimize, but it could take weeks, months, or even years for the student to learn and practice healthier coping mechanisms. The following is a slide with websites that school professionals may find useful when working with students who self-injure. Finally, here is a slide with resources in English and Spanish that families can use when helping their children who self-injure. The Department of Psychological and Social Services would like to thank you for contributing to our self-injury study. Once you complete Part 1 and 2 of the questionnaires and view the PowerPoint presentation, please email your name and professional degree and/or license type to Jessica CINTRON at jcintron@dallasisd.org. Please title your email in the subject heading with Self-Injury Survey. Your name will be entered in a drawing for one of the 5 $20 Amazon CINTRON.com gift certificates, and you will receive one continuing education unit or CEU for completing the study.